For the last 2 months, my dad has been in a very critical condition in the hospital. And I always teach my students to serve themselves before they serve anybody else. But how can you do that when somebody you love and somebody you are there to care for is really desperate for your help? So that's what I've been going through for the last 2 months. And my students always ask for an example of how can I serve myself in this kind of situation. So I'm going to tell you today how I did and how I'm still doing it while he's still hospitalized and in a critical condition. So the story goes like this. For now 2 months, he's been waiting for an amputation. So he's going through very, very intense pain in his foot. And every time I talk to him, every time I visit, every time we're on the phone, he's going through a crisis of pain to the point that he almost wanted to die. And he told me that he was ready to give up on life because of the pain. And so you can imagine that despite all the empathy and all the love I have for him, weeks after weeks, day after day of being in a crisis with him has really taken a toll on my ability to be there for him. And a couple of days ago, I was really stretched thin, like I had nothing left to give. And therefore, it's time for me to put in action what I teach to serve myself first. But it was impossible for me to leave my dad in the hospital alone, very confused on medication and in deep pain, and to just go home and simply leave him there in the middle of the crisis. I couldn't do that. But I knew I couldn't be in resonance and in presence to his pain so much anymore. So I decided to shift my focus. Right before I thought, okay, I can't take any more of this pain anymore. I can't take any more of this situation that's going on and on. What can I do? I decided to serve myself first in this way. So I decided to turn the camera while I was sitting on the bed with him, and he was in deep pain, crying, and just begging for some help, for more medication, for something that can really relieve him. Instead of focusing on him, I decided to start focusing on myself again. So you know the exercise we often tell to people, put the mask, the oxygen mask on yourself first and then on your kid or the person you want to help in the plane if there's a crash. Well, that's exactly what I did. So I didn't leave the hospital, but I took time to just take my focus off his pain, off his crying, off his words, off of everything that was going on with him, and turned the focus back towards myself. And in that moment where I turned it back towards myself, I could feel I started to experience anger and resentment, and the pain that was coming up for him was triggering a lot of my childhood wounds that were kind of unresolved. A layer was unresolved, so a lot of it we have resolved, but this pain was triggering like a new layer where I could feel the resentment and the anger towards my dad that was not there when he's doing well, but when he's not doing well, that layer came to the surface. And instead of projecting that, or instead of shutting it down, or instead of focusing on my dad's pain and trying to relieve him, I just stopped for a second and I decided to breathe into my own resentment, breathe into my own anger. So I became focused on what was going on inside of me. I was still there on the bed with him, but instead of being focused outward, I was focusing inward, really trying to breathe into my own emotions, trying not to shut them down, trying not to neglect them because I'm trying to take care of my dad, he is obviously in pain, more pain than I am. But I couldn't, at that point, I was getting so overwhelmed with this resentment that I could have just say, oh, I'm a spiritual person. I'm not going to feel this resentment. But it was there. I was feeling it. And instead of, pushing it away, I decided to welcome it. And that's how I say you serve yourself first When you're in someone who is in need, sometimes we believe that we have to neglect ourselves to take care of the other person. And in that moment, for me, if I had neglected myself, I would have denied myself the permission to feel the anger and the resentment that I was feeling. So I decided to breathe into it. And I didn't speak my resentment and my anger towards my dad because he was obviously already overwhelmed and saturated with his own experience. And it was not really about making him accountable for what we went through as a family, as a kid. It was not about that. It was just being there to support myself, to recognize, oh, I still have resentment. Oh, I still have anger that I didn't know was there. And the pain that he's experiencing just pushed everything up to the surface. And now I could see that resentment that I thought was gone. So the only thing I had to do in that moment is to breathe into my own resentment and just allow it and say, it's okay. It's okay, Milan. I see you anger. It's okay. And it's not about my dad making it right or changing what he's going through and how he's going through it. It was just about being there for myself in that situation, holding my hand and say, it's okay. This is really hard and you're allowed to feel how you feel. And as I decided to breathe through the experience and stop focusing on my dad's pain and focusing on me again, slowly the resentment and the anger really became digestible. It's like I could digest that new layer of emotion coming to the surface, and then I could feel it dissolve and move away, move out of my body and just dissolve and complete its cycle. And then I did that for about 15-20 minutes. And after that, I could feel myself becoming available again for him. So that's what I mean when I say serve yourself first. Sometimes you cannot abandon this person in the middle of a crisis. Maybe it's your child, maybe it's your partner, and you cannot just like leave, or you could leave, but a part of you doesn't want to leave. A part of you wants to stay, but you just don't feel like you have anything else to give. Well, in that moment, my tip for you is turn the focus back into yourself while you're still with the person. Turn the focus back to yourself and scan your body. Try to see what's going on for me as I'm assisting this person. What's going on for me as I am supporting this person, instead of just having the focus outward. And then once you figure out what's happening for you, instead of projecting it onto the other person, asking the other person to make things right, just breathe and allow yourself and say, it's okay, you can feel like this. And breathe into it, into the body, into the sensation, and really just allow yourself to experience what you experience. So this is what I mean for all my students and the people listening when I say, serve yourself first. So let me know what you think in the comments. I'm pretty curious. And feel free to share any experience you have about your own tools you use, the own tools you use for yourself when you try to serve yourself first in these kinds of situations.